Rain lashed against the windshield like 1,000 angry fingers, blurring the narrow mountain road into a watery haze. Ilara Tharn gripped the steering wheel of her battered old Jeep, her knuckles white against the worn leather. The wipers slapped back and forth in a futile rhythm, barely keeping up with the deluge. Thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the vehicle as if the sky itself were about to crack open and swallow her whole. She shouldn't be out here. Not tonight. Not in this god-forsaken storm that had rolled in from the Pacific like a vengeful spirit. But Ilara had no choice. The email from her ex-fiance's lawyer had been the final straw. A cold, clinical notice that the house she'd poured her heart into was now officially his, along with the life she'd built and shattered in one fell swoop. Betrayal burned in her chest like acid, hotter than the tears she'd refused to shed. She'd packed what little she owned into the Jeep and fled Seattle without a backward glance, heading for the remote cabin her late grandmother had left her in the dense forests of the Olympic Peninsula. A place to hide, to heal, to forget. The road twisted upward, flanked by towering evergreens that swayed ominously in the wind. Lightning flashed, illuminating the jagged peaks of the mountains like skeletal fingers reaching for the heavens. Ilara's phone had lost signal miles ago, and the radio sputtered nothing but static. She was alone, utterly, profoundly alone in a world that felt increasingly hostile. A sudden crack of thunder made her jump, and in that split second, something darted across the road. A shadow, massive and fleet, vanished into the underbrush before she could register it. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Just a deer, she muttered to herself, forcing her breath to steady. But the forest here felt alive, watchful. Whispers of old stories from her grandmother flickered in her mind, tales of wolves that weren't wolves, of men who walked on four legs under the moon's gaze. Superstitions, she'd always thought, but tonight, with the storm raging, they felt too real. She rounded a bend, and that's when she saw it. A crumpled shape on the shoulder of the road, half obscured by the pouring rain. At first, she thought it was a fallen log, but as her headlights swept over it, the beam caught the glint of wet fur and the labored rise and fall of a chest. A wolf? No, it was too big, its body sprawling unnaturally, as if it had been hit by a vehicle and left for dead. Ilara slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding slightly on the slick pavements before coming to a halt. Her pulse thundered in her ears. What was she doing? This was insane. Wild animals were dangerous, especially injured ones. But something pulled at her, an inexplicable urge, like a thread tugging at her soul. She couldn't just leave it there to die. Grabbing her flashlight from the glove compartment and shrugging on her rain jacket, she stepped out into the torrent. The wind whipped her dark hair across her face, soaking her in seconds. She approached cautiously, the beam of light cutting through the darkness. The creature was enormous, its fur a deep, midnight black matted with blood and mud. Its eyes, golden, piercing, flicked open as she neared, locking onto hers with an intelligence that sent a chill down her spine, unrelated to the cold. "Hey, big guy," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "I'm not going to hurt you." She kneeled a safe distance away, assessing the damage. A gash ran along its flank, deep and ugly, as if from claws rather than a car. Claw marks. That didn't make sense. No tire tracks nearby either. The wolf let out a low whine, its massive head lifting slightly before dropping back to the ground. Ilara's mind raced. She was no vet, but she'd volunteered at animal shelters back in the city, enough to know this thing needed help fast. But how? It had to weigh at least 200 pounds. Dragging it to the Jeep seemed impossible. As if sensing her hesitation, the wolf's eyes met hers again, and for a moment the world narrowed to just that gaze. A strange warmth bloomed in her chest, chasing away the fear. It was ridiculous, but she felt connected, like this wasn't random. Okay, she said, more to herself than the animal. "We can do this." She hurried back to the Jeep, rummaging for the emergency blanket and a tarp she'd stashed in the back. The rain pounded relentlessly, turning the ground to mud. By the time she returned, the wolf hadn't moved, its breathing ragged. With trembling hands, she spread the tarp beside it and gently, oh so gently, rolled the beast onto it. It growled softly but didn't snap, as if understanding her intent. Muscles straining, she dragged the tarp toward the Jeep, inch by grueling inch. Lightning cracked again, thunder following like a roar, and she swore she heard distant howls echoing through the trees. Wolves? A pack? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she heaved the wolf into the back of the Jeep, covering it with the blanket. Its eyes closed, and for a terrifying second, she thought it had stopped breathing. But no, the chest rose faintly. Slamming the door, Ilara climbed back into the driver's seat, shivering violently. What had she just done? Taken in a wild predator? But leaving it felt wrong, like abandoning a part of herself. The cabin was only a few miles ahead, according to the map she'd memorized. She'd get there, tend to the wound as best she could, and call for help in the morning if the storm cleared. Simple plan. As she drove on, the wolf's presence filled the vehicle like a living shadow. Unseen eyes seemed to watch from the forest, and the moon, peeking through ragged clouds, cast an eerie silver glow. Ilara glanced in the rearview mirror, and her breath caught. For a fleeting instant, the blanket shifted, revealing not fur, but skin. Human skin. She blinked, shaking her head. Trick of the light. Exhaustion. Nothing more. But deep down, a spark of curiosity and something dangerously close to fate ignited. The storm raged on, but Ilara Thorne's world had already begun to shift, pulling her into shadows she never knew existed. The gravel drive to the cabin was little more than 2 muddy ruts swallowed by ferns and salal. Ilara's headlights bounced over the uneven ground until the small A-frame appeared, dark and silent, its cedar shingles glistening like scales in the rain. She killed the engine and sat for a moment, listening to the storm batter the roof and the low, uneven breathing from the back seat. The wolf hadn't moved since she'd loaded him in. No growls, no shifting, just that shallow rise and fall that told her he was still alive. Barely. She climbed out, boots sinking into the muck, and unlocked the front door first. The air inside was cold and stale, carrying the faint scent of pine pitch and old books. Her grandmother's things were exactly as she'd left them 5 years ago. A wool blanket draped over the back of the sofa, a stack of yellowed romance novels on the coffee table, a kettle still hanging over the wood stove. She flicked on the single overhead bulb, then hurried back to the Jeep. Getting the wolf inside was harder than dragging him to the tarp had been. She looped her arms under his shoulders. God, he was heavy, and hauled backward, heels slipping. Rain soaked through her jacket, plastering hair to her face. Halfway up the 2 port steps, he stirred, a deep rumble vibrating through his chest, but he didn't fight her. If anything, he seemed to lean into her grip, as though trusting her not to let him fall. By the time she eased him onto the braided rug in front of the hearth, Ilara was shaking from cold and exertion. She slammed the door against the wind, then stood over him, panting. Blood had seeped through the blanket, dark against the pale wool. The gash along his flank looked worse in the lamplight. 3 parallel slashes, too clean and deliberate for a car accident, too deep for anything but claws. Claw marks? That didn't make sense. No tire tracks nearby either. The wolf let out a low whine, its massive head lifting slightly before dropping back to the ground. Ilara's mind raced. She was no vet, but she'd volunteered at animal shelters back in the city, enough to know this thing needed help fast. But how? It had to weigh at least 200 pounds. Dragging it to the Jeep seemed impossible. As if sensing her hesitation, the wolf's eyes met hers again, and for a moment the world narrowed to just that gaze. A strange warmth bloomed in her chest, chasing away the fear. It was ridiculous, but she felt connected, like this wasn't random. Okay, she said, more to herself than the animal. We can do this. She hurried back to the Jeep, rummaging for the emergency blanket and a tarp she'd stashed in the back. The rain pounded relentlessly, turning the ground to mud. By the time she returned, the wolf hadn't moved, its breathing ragged. With trembling hands, she spread the tarp beside it and gently, oh so gently, rolled the beast onto it. It growled softly but didn't snap, as if understanding her intent. Muscles straining, she dragged the tarp toward the Jeep, inch by grueling inch. Lightning cracked again, thunder following like a roar, and she swore she heard distant howls echoing through the trees. Wolves? A pack? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she heaved the wolf into the back of the Jeep, covering it with the blanket. Its eyes closed, and for a terrifying second, she thought it had stopped breathing. But no, the chest rose faintly. Slamming the door, Ilara climbed back into the driver's seat, shivering violently.
"I won't hurt you," he said. "You have my word."
"Your word?"
She laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. "I found a wolf on the road. I brought it here, I stitched it up, and now there's a naked man in my kitchen wearing my bandages. So forgive me if I'm not feeling particularly trusting." He stopped, giving her space. Firelight from the living room painted shifting shadows across his skin. "My name is Rowan," he said quietly, "and I owe you a debt I can't repay tonight." Rowan, she tasted the name. "How did you—" She gestured helplessly at his body, at the absence of fur, at everything impossible. He glanced down at himself as if only just remembering he was bare. A flicker of something. Embarrassment crossed his face. "There are clothes in the loft, aren't there? Your grandmother kept spares for guests." Ilara blinked. "How do you know that?" "I knew your grandmother," he said simply, "a long time ago." The poker lowered an inch. "You knew Graham?" He nodded. "She was kind to me when others weren't." Something in his tone, the quiet weight of old pain, made her chest tighten again. She studied him for a long moment, then jerked her head toward the narrow stairs. "Loft's up there. Sweatpants and flannels in the cedar chest. Help yourself." He moved past her carefully, as though afraid she'd swing the poker if he came too close. She caught his scent as he passed, pine and rain and something wild, like ozone after lightning. While he dressed, Ilara busied herself stoking the fire and putting the kettle on. Her mind raced, trying to fit impossible pieces together. Werewolf? The word floated up unbidden from childhood stories, from late-night movies. But this was real. The man climbing down the stairs in her grandmother's old flannel shirt and 2 short sweatpants was real. He paused at the bottom step, looking uncertain for the first time. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the armchair. "You're still hurt." Rowan obeyed, moving with a stiffness that spoke of pain he was trying not to show. He lowered himself carefully, wincing as the bandages pulled. Ilara poured 2 mugs of tea, chamomile, the only kind Graham had ever stocked, and handed him one. Their fingers brushed. His skin was fever hot. They sat in silence for a while, fire popping between them. Finally, she asked the question burning in her throat. "Are you what I think you are?" Rowan's gaze met hers over the rim of his mug. "That depends. What do you think I am?" "Don't play games." He sighed, setting the tea aside. "I'm a shifter, born, not made. My people have lived in these mountains for centuries." Ilara's heart pounded. "And the wolf I found, that was you?" "Yes." She stared into the fire, trying to process. "Why were you hurt? Those weren't car wounds." Rowan's jaw tightened. "A fight. Territory dispute. I lost." The simplicity of it, of violence and survival, sent a shiver through her. He watched her carefully. "You're not screaming or running." "I considered it," she admitted. "But you didn't hurt me when you could have. And I don't know. Something about you feels—" She stopped, cheeks warming. "Familiar?" he finished softly. She looked up sharply. His eyes held hers, intense and searching. "Yes," she whispered. Rowan leaned forward, elbows on knees. Your grandmother used to say the forest chooses who it brings together, that some meetings aren't accidents. Alara's throat tightened. She thought of the pull she'd felt on the road, the certainty that she couldn't leave him to die. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, and somewhere, deep in the trees, a lone wolf howled, a long, mournful sound that raised the hairs on her arms. Rowan stilled, head tilting as he listened. When the howl faded, his expression darkened. "They're still looking for me," he murmured. "Who?" "The ones I fought tonight." He moved to the window to peer into the darkness. "I need to leave before dawn, before they track me here." Panic flared in the Mara's chest. "You're no shape to go anywhere." "I've healed worse." But his voice lacked conviction. She stood, stepping between him and the door. "You're staying until you can walk without bleeding through my bandages. That's final." A ghost of amusement touched his mouth. "Bossy? You have no idea." For a moment, something electric passed between them. Awareness, attraction, the first fragile thread of trust. Rowan's gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to hers. "Thank you, Alara Thorne, for more than you know." She hadn't told him her name. Before she could ask how he knew it, another howl rose, closer this time. Rowan's body went rigid, gold eyes flashing in the firelight. And Alara realized the storm outside was far from the most dangerous tonight. The howl echoed again, slicing through the cabin's thin walls like a knife. Alara's skin prickled, her gaze darting to the window where rain-smeared glass reflected the fire's glow. Rowan stood frozen, his broad frame silhouetted against the pane, every muscle taut as if ready to spring. "Who are they?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Your pack?" He didn't turn, but she saw his shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. "Not anymore. I was cast out years ago. The ones hunting me tonight are from a rival clan, encroaching on old territories." Alara's heart pounded. "Why? What did you do?" Rowan's jaw... Rowan's laugh was bitter, low. "Existed. That's enough for some." He finally turned, his gold eyes catching the light like embers. The flannel shirt hung loose on him, but it did nothing to hide the power coiled in his body, the way he moved with a predator's grace, even wounded. He crossed the room in 2 strides and sank back into the armchair, wincing as he did. "You should rest," she said, ignoring the way her pulse quickened at his nearness. "Those stitches won't hold if you keep pacing like a caged animal." A faint smile touched his lips. Apt description. She busied herself with the tea mugs, refilling them from the kettle to avoid meeting his gaze. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken questions. How did he know her name, her grandmother? And why did being near him feel like standing on the edge of a cliff? Terrifying, exhilarating. As she handed him the mug, their fingers brushed again. This time, neither pulled away quickly. His skin was still hot, feverish, but beneath it she sensed a tremor, a vulnerability he was fighting to hide. "You're burning up," she murmured, pressing the back of her hand to his forehead without thinking. He stilled under her touch, eyes widening slightly. "It's the shift," he explained roughly. "Healing accelerates it. I'll be fine by morning." Alara nodded but didn't move her hand. His scent enveloped her, earth and storm and something uniquely him. She traced a scar on his temple with her thumb, gentle. "These? From fights?" He caught her wrist lightly, not to push her away, but to hold her there. His thumb circled the pulse point, sending warmth spiraling up her arm. "Some," he said. "Others from before, when I was young." She searched his face, seeing layers of pain etched there like rings in a tree. "Tell me about it, if you want." Rowan hesitated, his grip loosening but not releasing. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. Outside, the wind moaned, carrying faint, distant howls that seemed to answer some call deep within him. "I was born into the Cascade Pack, up in these mountains. My father was Alpha, strong, unyielding. But when I was 15, a curse hit our bloodline. Old magic, tied to the moon. It made shifts unpredictable, dangerous, turned some of us feral." "A curse?" Alara Laharbath. He nodded. Witch's work from a feud generations back. My father blamed me, said I was weak, that I'd brought it on us. He drove me out. I've been lone ever since. The raw edge in his voice tugged at her heart. She knew that ache, the sting of rejection, of being deemed not enough. Her ex's words echoed in her mind. You're too broken, Alara. I need someone whole. And the rivals? She prompted gently. They sense weakness in lone wolves. Tonight I crossed their scouts, fought to protect something important. He trailed off, gazing flicking to the window again. Something or someone? Rowan's jaw clenched. He released her wrist, leaning back as if to put distance between them. It's not your burden. But she didn't let him retreat. Kneeling beside the chair, she met his eyes levelly. You said your grandmother knew you. How? A ghost of a smile returned. Agnes Thorne was a friend to the Wild Things. She found me once, much like you did, half dead after a bad shift. Patched me up, gave me shelter. Never asked for explanations, just accepted. Alara's throat tightened. Graham had always been like that. Quiet strength, open heart. She never told me. Some secrets aren't meant to be shared lightly. His voice softened. But she spoke of you often, said you had her spirit, fierce, kind. Warmth bloomed in Alara's chest, unexpected and deep. I miss her. Rowan reached out, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, intimate. Your grand would be proud of you tonight. Their faces were inches apart now. Alara could see flecks of amber in his eyes, feel the heat radiating from him. Her breath mingled with his, the world narrowing to this moment. Something pulled at her, a magnetic force.
His eyes searched hers, conflict warring in their depths. A relic, an old artifact from my pack's history. It holds power, over the curse maybe. The rivals want it. If they get it... He stopped, hand rising to cup her cheek. His touch was feather light, but it sent shivers cascading down her spine. I won't drag you into this. Too late, she whispered, leaning into his palm. I'm already in. Rowan's breath hitched, his thumb brushing her lower lip. The air thickened, charged with unspoken desire. He leaned in, forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling. You have no idea what you're offering. Then show me. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd kiss her. The tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. But he pulled back, regret etching his features. Not yet. Not until I know it's safe. Disappointment mingled with understanding. This was slow, deliberate, like the forest reclaiming cleared land, inch by inch. To break the moment, Alara stepped outside onto the porch. The air was crisp, mist rising from the ferns like ghosts. Rowan joined her, scanning the tree line. It's beautiful here, she said, gesturing to the towering cedars and the distant peaks. Peaceful. Until it's not. He pointed to a faint trail winding into the woods. I need to check the perimeter, make sure they're truly gone. I'll come with you. He shook his head. Too dangerous. And leaving me alone is better? She arched a brow. I can handle myself. A reluctant smile. Stubborn. You have no idea. They set off together, the path soft underfoot with fallen needles. Rowan moved with silent grace, pointing out edible berries and animal tracks, a deer's delicate prints, a bear's massive paw. As they walked, conversation flowed easier, stories of her city mishaps, his tales of full moon runs under starlit skies. Deeper in, they reached a small clearing where a stream burbled over mossy rocks. Rowan knelt to drink, cupping water in his hands. Alara watched, mesmerized by the play of light on his hair, the way his muscles shifted under the flannel. Why me? She asked suddenly. Why do I feel like I've known you forever? He straightened, water dripping from his chin. Shifter lore speaks of fated mates, souls linked across time. The pull is undeniable. Her heart skipped. Is that what this is? Rowan stepped closer, the stream's murmur the only sound. You have no idea what you're offering. Then show me. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd kiss her, the tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. But he pulled back, regret etching his features. Not yet, not until I know it's safe. Disappointment mingled with understanding. This was slow, deliberate, like the forest reclaiming cleared land, inch by inch. To break the moment, Ilara stepped outside onto the porch. The air was crisp, mist rising from the ferns like ghosts. Rowan joined her, scanning the tree line. It's beautiful here, she said, gesturing to the towering cedars and the distant peaks. Peaceful. Until it's not. He pointed to a faint trail winding into the woods. I need to check the perimeter, make sure they're truly gone. I'll come with you. He shook his head. Too dangerous. And leaving me alone is better? She arched a brow. I can handle myself. A reluctant smile. Stubborn. You have no idea. They set off together, the path soft underfoot with fallen needles. Rowan moved with silent grace, pointing out edible berries and animal tracks, a deer's delicate prints, a bear's massive paw. As they walked, conversation flowed easier, stories of her city mishaps, his tales of full moon runs under starlit skies. Deeper in, they reached a small clearing where a stream burbled over mossy rocks. Rowan knelt to drink, cupping water in his hands. Ilara watched, mesmerized by the play of light on his hair, the way his muscles shifted under the flannel. Why me? She asked suddenly. Why do I feel like I've known you forever? He straightened, water dripping from his chin. Shifter lore speaks of fated mates, souls linked across time. The pull is undeniable. Her heart skipped. Is that what this is? Rowan stepped closer, the stream's murmur the only sound. You have no idea what you're offering. Then show me. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd kiss her, the tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. But he pulled back, regret etching his features. Not yet, not until I know it's safe. Disappointment mingled with understanding. This was slow, deliberate, like the forest reclaiming cleared land, inch by inch. To break the moment, Ilara stepped outside onto the porch. The air was crisp, mist rising from the ferns like ghosts. Rowan joined her, scanning the tree line. It's beautiful here, she said, gesturing to the towering cedars and the distant peaks. Peaceful. Until it's not. He pointed to a faint trail winding into the woods. I need to check the perimeter, make sure they're truly gone. I'll come with you. He shook his head. Too dangerous. And leaving me alone is better? She arched a brow. I can handle myself. A reluctant smile. Stubborn. You have no idea. They set off together, the path soft underfoot with fallen needles. Rowan moved with silent grace, pointing out edible berries and animal tracks, a deer's delicate prints, a bear's massive paw. As they walked, conversation flowed easier, stories of her city mishaps, his tales of full moon runs under starlit skies. Deeper in, they reached a small clearing where a stream burbled over mossy rocks. Rowan knelt to drink, cupping water in his hands. Ilara watched, mesmerized by the play of light on his hair, the way his muscles shifted under the flannel. Why me? She asked suddenly. Why do I feel like I've known you forever? He straightened, water dripping from his chin. Shifter lore speaks of fated mates, souls linked across time. The pull is undeniable. Her heart skipped. Is that what this is? Rowan stepped closer, the stream's murmur the only sound. You have no idea what you're offering. Then show me. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd kiss her, the tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. But he pulled back, regret etching his features. Not yet, not until I know it's safe. Disappointment mingled with understanding. This was slow, deliberate, like the forest reclaiming cleared land inch by inch. To break the moment, Elara stepped outside onto the porch. The air was crisp, mist rising from the ferns like ghosts. Rowan joined her, scanning the tree line. "It's beautiful here," she said, gesturing to the towering cedars and the distant peaks. "Peaceful. Until it's not." He pointed to a faint trail winding into the woods. "I need to check the perimeter, make sure they're truly gone." "I'll come with you." He shook his head. "Too dangerous." "And leaving me alone is better?" She arched a brow. "I can handle myself." A reluctant smile. "Stubborn. You have no idea." They set off together, the path soft underfoot with fallen needles. Rowan moved with silent grace, pointing out edible berries and animal tracks, a deer's delicate prints, a bear's massive paw. As they walked, conversation flowed easier, stories of her city mishaps, his tales of full moon runs under starlit skies. Deeper in, they reached a small clearing where a stream burbled over mossy rocks. Rowan knelt to drink, cupping water in his hands. Elara watched, mesmerized by the play of light on his hair, the way his muscles shifted under the flannel. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "Why do I feel like I've known you forever?" He straightened, water dripping from his chin. "Shifter lore speaks of fated mates, souls linked across time. The pull is undeniable." Her heart skipped. "Is that what this is?" Rowan stepped closer, the stream's murmur the only sound. "You have no idea what you're offering." "Then show me." For a heartbeat, she thought he'd kiss her. The tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. But he pulled back, regret etching his features. "Not yet. Not until I know it's safe." Disappointment mingled with understanding. This was slow, deliberate, like the forest reclaiming cleared land inch by inch. To break the moment, Elara stepped outside onto the porch. The air was crisp, mist rising from the ferns like ghosts. Rowan joined her, scanning the tree line. "It's beautiful here," she said, gesturing to the towering cedars and the distant peaks. "Peaceful. Until it's not." He pointed to a faint trail winding into the woods. "I need to check the perimeter, make sure they're truly gone." "I'll come with you." He shook his head. "Too dangerous." "And leaving me alone is better?" She arched a brow. "I can handle myself." A reluctant smile. "Stubborn. You have no idea." They set off together. Higher up, the trail narrowed, flanked by sheer cliffs. Rowan stopped abruptly, nostrils flaring. Scent markers. Iron Fang patrols have been here. Alara's pulse spiked. "Recent?" "Last night." He scanned the trees. "We press on. The cave's wards will keep them out." They hurried forward, the mist thickening until visibility dropped to yards. Rowan led her to a jagged outcrop, concealed by vines. He parted them, revealing a narrow fissure in the rock. "Through here," he murmured. "Stay close." The cave swallowed them, damp and echoing. Alara's flashlight beam danced over glistening walls, illuminating ancient carvings, wolves, moons, intertwined figures. "Shifter runes," Rowan explained, voice reverent. "Protection spells." Deeper in, the air grew heavier, charged with an otherworldly hum. Rowan knelt at a stone altar, brushing away dust to reveal a hidden compartment. With a click, it opened. Inside lay the Moonstone, a fist-sized crystal, swirling with inner light like captured starlight. Elara gasped. "It's beautiful." Rowan lifted it carefully, wrapping it in cloth. And dangerous. As he tucked it into his pack, a low rumble echoed from the entrance. Rocks shifting, voices murmuring. "They're here," Rowan whispered, eyes widening. "Kale must have followed our trail." Alara's heart hammered. "Can we fight?" "Not outnumbered." He grabbed her hand. "There's a back way out. Run." They dashed through twisting tunnels, the stone amplifying pursuing footsteps. Rowan shifted partially, eyes glowing, claws extending, to navigate the dark.
Alara clung to him, trust absolute. Bursting into daylight on the far side, they slid down a steep embankment, branches whipping their faces. Below, the forest stretched, but howls rose, closing in. Rowan pulled her behind a boulder. We split up. I'll draw them off. No! Alara gripped his shirt. Together, remember? He kissed her fiercely, desperate. I can't lose you. You won't. She met his gaze. But there's more to your secret, isn't there? Something about the stone, about me. Rowan's face paled. Alara! A snarl cut him off. Shadows moved in the trees, wolves, eyes gleaming. No time for revelations. They ran again, the moonstone a heavy weight in his pack, secrets and danger nipping at their heels. Branches whipped at Alara's face as she and Rowan plunged deeper into the forest, the ground uneven and slick from the recent rain. Her lungs burned, each breath a sharp gasp, but she pushed on, Rowan's hand clasped tightly in hers. The howls behind them grew fainter, but the pursuit was relentless. Shadowy forms darting through the underbrush, eyes reflecting the dim light like distant lanterns. Keep going, Rowan urged, his voice strained. He glanced back, golden eyes narrowing. They're flanking us. We need higher ground. Alara nodded, saving her breath. The moonstone in Rowan's pack felt like a beacon, drawing danger like moths to flame. What had she gotten herself into? Yet, running beside him, their fingers intertwined, she felt a fierce determination. This wasn't just his fight anymore. They crested a ridge, skidding down into a narrow ravine where a stream rushed over smooth stones. Rowan pulled her across, water soaking their boots. On the far bank, he paused, ears twitching as if listening to whispers only he could hear. They're splitting up, he muttered. 2 to the east, 1 circling west. How do you know? He tapped his nose, scent on the wind. Then softer, and the wolf inside me senses them. Alara shivered, not from the cold. The reminder of his dual nature, of the beast coiled within the man, stirred a mix of awe and unease. She trusted him, but the full moon loomed, and with it, uncertainties. They pressed on, the terrain growing steeper. Rowan's pace slowed slightly, a hand pressing to his side where old wounds pulled. Alara squeezed his hand. You okay? I'll manage, but his smile was tight, pain etching around his eyes. As dusk deepened, painting the sky in bruised purples, they stumbled upon a hidden grotto, an overhang of rock draped in vines, concealing a shallow cave. Rowan checked it quickly, sniffing for threats, then ushered her inside. Safe for now, he said, dropping the pack. They'll lose our trail in the stream. Alara collapsed against the mossy wall, heart still racing. The space was cramped, barely room for 2, but it offered shelter from the wind. Rowan built a small fire from dry tinder he'd gathered, flames flickering to life and casting warm glows on the stone. She watched him work, marveling at his efficiency. You live like this, always running? Not always, he sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. The curse forces it, unpredictable shifts drawing attention. Alara drew her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Tell me more about the ritual. What happens if we try it? Rowan's gaze fixed on the fire. The moonstone amplifies the bond. Under the full moon, we hold it together. Speak the old words. If the souls align, the curse shatters. The wolf stabilizes, becomes whole. And if not, pain, madness, death. He turned to her, expression grave. That's why I hesitate. You're a human, Alara. The risk? I'm not fragile. She met his eyes, defiant. And this feels right, like Graham meant for me to find you. Rowan reached out, tracing her jaw with calloused fingers. Agnes saw something in you, a spark of the old blood. Old blood? Alara's brow furrowed. He hesitated, then sighed. Your family, Thornline has shifter ties, distant, diluted. Agnes hinted at it, ancestors who mingled with packs. It's why she could sense me, help me. The revelation hit like a wave. I'm part shifter? Not fully, but enough to feel the pull. His thumb brushed her lip. Enough to be my mate, perhaps.
Alara's breath hitched. The idea ignited something deep, a sense of belonging she'd chased her whole life. She leaned in, capturing his mouth in a kiss that poured out her fears and hopes. Rowan responded with equal fervor, hands sliding to her waist, pulling her onto his lap. The kiss deepened, slow and exploratory. Alara's fingers tangled in his hair, feeling the heat build between them. His scent enveloped her, wild and comforting, stirring a primal response. For a moment, the world shrank to just them, the crackle of fire, the taste of rain on his skin, the way his heart raced against hers. Rowan broke away first, breathing heavily. We can't. Not here, not now. The moon's too close. I feel the shift itching under my skin. She nodded, though desire ached. Then hold me, just that. He did, wrapping her in his arms as they leaned against the cave wall. The fire popped, sending sparks upward. In the quiet, Rowan shared more fragments of his past. Childhood hunts with the pack, the betrayal of his father, the loneliness that followed. My mother tried to stop the exile. She knew the curse wasn't my fault, but alphas don't bend. Alara traced patterns on his chest. What happened to her? Died in a raid, Iron Fangs. His voice hardened. Kale's doing indirectly. He's always hunger for power. Sympathy swelled in her. She pressed a kiss to his collarbone. You've carried so much alone. Not anymore. He tilted her chin up, eyes soft. You see me, the man, the wolf. No one's done that since Agnes. Their bond deepened in that intimacy, woven from vulnerability. Alara opened up too, her parents' early death, the isolation in the city, Mark's betrayal that echoed Rowan's own rejections. We're both outcasts, she said softly, finding home in each other. Rowan smiled, a genuine warmth lighting his features. Fate's twisted path. As night fully claimed the sky, they dozed fitfully, Rowan's arms a protective cage. But suspense lingered, the moonstone's hum in the pack a constant reminder. And Alara sensed he held back still, a shadow in his eyes when he spoke of the ritual, as if a final secret waited. A distant howl shattered the peace. Rowan's eyes snapped open, glowing faintly in the dark. They're closing in, he whispered. We move at first light. Alara nodded, fear mingling with resolve. But as they prepared to rest again, a rustle outside made them freeze. Rowan tensed, claws extending slightly, a partial shift. Stay here, he mouthed. Before she could protest, he slipped out, vanishing into the shadows. Minutes stretched like hours. Then a growl echoed, followed by a yelp and scuffling. Alara grabbed a burning branch from the fire, heart pounding. She crept to the entrance, peering out. Rowan wrestled a lone wolf, smaller than his form, but vicious. Claws raked, teeth snapped. Rowan pinned it, snarling words in a guttural tongue. The wolf shifted mid-fight, becoming a young man with wild eyes. Traitor, he spat. Kale wants the stone and the girl. Rowan growled. Tell Kale he's too late. With a swift blow, he knocked the scout unconscious, binding him with vines. Returning, blood trickling from a fresh scratch, Rowan met Alara's wide eyes. Just a scout, but more will come. She tended the wound, hands steady, despite the adrenaline. He called you traitor. Why? Rowan's face closed off. Old history, not always rogue by choice. The evasion heightened the suspense. What else hid in his past? But a knock at the door, sharp, human, jolted them apart. Rowan's eyes widened in recognition. Who is it? Alara whispered. Someone from my past, he growled, secrets unraveling at the threshold. The knock echoed through the cabin like a thunderclap, sharp and insistent. Alara's heart leaped into her throat, her body still humming from the warmth of Rowan's embrace. He froze beside her, his arms tightening protectively around her waist before releasing her entirely. The moon hung heavy outside the window, its silver light casting long shadows across the floorboards. Rowan's nostrils flared, scenting the air. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of recognition, and something darker, like regret, crossing his features. Stay back, he whispered, voice low and edged with warning. Who is it? Alara repeated, her hand reaching for the poker by the hearth. The iron was cold in her grip, a poor weapon against whatever lurked in the night. Someone I thought was dead. Rowan's words were clipped, laced with old pain. He moved to the door with predatory grace, one hand on the latch, the other clenched into a fist, claws extended slightly, glinting in the firelight, a subtle shift that reminded her of the beast within. The knock came again, softer this time, almost pleading. Rowan unbarred the door and cracked it open, just enough to peer out. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and something familiar, fur, earth, kinship. Alara strained to see over his shoulder. A woman stood on the porch, cloaked in shadows. She was tall and lean, with silver-threaded black hair pulled into a braid that fell to her waist. Her eyes, the same luminous gold as Rowan's, widened at the sight of him. Scars marred her cheek, old and faded, but her posture held the quiet strength of a survivor. "Brother," she breathed, voice cracking like dry leaves. Alara's breath hitched. "Brother." Rowan's body went rigid. Lyra. The name escaped him like a prayer or a curse. He swung the door wider, pulling her inside with a swift motion before slamming it shut and barring it again. How? I saw the raid, the blood. Lyra stepped into the firelight, her cloak dripping rainwater onto the rug. She looked worn, lines of exhaustion etched around her eyes, but there was a fierce vitality to her. I survived. Barely. The Iron Fangs took me captive, used me as leverage. I escaped 2 moons ago. Her gaze flicked to Alara, assessing. "And you found a human?" Rowan positioned himself between them, protective. "Alara's more than that. She's with me." Lyra's brows rose, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "The pull? Fate's bond?" Something like that. Rowan's tone was guarded, but Alara caught the undercurrent of hope. Lyra nodded slowly, then sank into the armchair without invitation, wincing as she did. "I've been tracking you, heard whispers of the Moonstone resurfacing, Kale's closing in, he knows you're weakened by the curse." Alara set the poker down, but kept it within reach. "You're Rowan's sister?" Lyra met her eyes, gold to hazel. Twin, actually, though the pack always favored him, the potential alpha. There was no bitterness in her words, only fact. Rowan paced, agitation rolling off him in waves. Why come now, after all these years? "Because you're not a traitor, Rowan," Lyra's voice sharpened. "Father's lies poisoned the pack. I know the truth. You exposed his dealings to save us, not destroy us. But Kale twisted it, used the chaos to slaughter and claim territory." Alara watched Rowan closely. His earlier confession had skimmed this, but hearing it from Lyra added layers, confirmation, but also fresh wounds. "You never told me about a sister," she said softly, not accusing, but seeking. He stopped pacing, turning to her with eyes full of turmoil. "I thought she was gone, lost in the raid. Carrying that, it was easier to bury it all." Lyra leaned forward. "He's always been like that, shouldering burdens alone. But the full moon rises tomorrow. If you have the stone, we can end this, reclaim what's ours." "We?" Rowan's growl was low. "I'm rogue, Lyra. No pack left for me." "Not true." She rose, placing a hand on his arm. "Survivors scattered, but some wait, loyal ones. We can rebuild if the curse breaks." The room fell silent, save for the crackle of the fire. Alara felt the weight of their history pressing in, the suspense thickening like fog. Rowan's secret identity wasn't just lone wolf or exiled son. He was a would-be alpha, a brother with unfinished family ties. What else lay hidden? Rowan glanced at Alara, conflict warring in his gaze. "The ritual requires a true mate, risking Alara." Lyra's eyes softened as she looked between them. "I see the bond forming. It's strong. But Kale won't wait. His scouts are everywhere." As if summoned, a howl pierced the night, close, challenging. Rowan tensed, but Lyra shook her head. "Not yet. We have until dawn to plan." They spent the next hours in tense discussion. Lyra sketched a rough map on the table with charcoal, marking Iron Fang positions and safe routes. Rowan added details, his hand occasionally brushing Alara's under the table, a silent reassurance. As Lyra spoke of the pack's remnants, Alara saw Rowan's walls crack further. "You could lead again," Lyra urged. "With the stone, the curse lifts. We unite." But Rowan's eyes stayed on Alara. "My path's changed. I want peace, not power." Lyra sighed. "Peace comes with strength, brother." Later, when Lyra stepped outside to scout the perimeter, Alara pulled Rowan aside. The cabin felt smaller, charged with unspoken words. "Your sister," she said, tracing his jaw. He caught her hand, kissing her palm. "She reminds me of what I lost. But you show me what I can gain." Alara's heart swelled. "Do you want to lead? Be alpha again?" He hesitated, vulnerability raw. "Part of me does. The wolf craves pack, but the man wants you, us, away from the blood." She leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that started tender but grew urgent, fueled by the night's revelations. Rowan's hands framed her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks as if memorizing her. Alara melted against him, feeling the bond deepen, a soul-deep connection that transcended words. When they parted, breathless, he whispered, "Whatever comes, I choose you." Tears pricked her eyes. "And I choose you, all of you, alpha or rogue." Lyra returned then, interrupting with a grim nod. "Clear for now, but we move at first light. The ritual site, the old grove, it's warded." Rowan agreed, but as they prepared beds, Lyra on the loft and them on the sofa, suspense lingered. Alara sensed more to Lyra's arrival, a hidden motive perhaps, or a deeper secret in Rowan's past. Why had she survived captivity so long, and what leverage had Cale held? Curled against Rowan, his arm draped over her, Alara whispered, "Promise me the full truth, before the moon." He kissed her forehead. "I will, when it's safe." But as she slept, distant howls rose, a chorus of pursuit. Dawn would bring choices, and with the full moon looming, the shadows of Rowan's identity threatened to eclipse their fragile light. The first pale light of pre-dawn crept through the cabin windows, turning the room into a study of grays and muted golds. Alara stirred on the sofa, Rowan's arm still heavy across her waist, his breath warm at the nape of her neck. Lyra descended the loft stairs, silent as a shadow. She paused at the bottom, watching Alara with those piercing gold eyes. "You're brave to stand with him," she said quietly. "Most humans would have run by now." Alara met her gaze steadily. "I'm not most humans, and he's worth it." A flicker of approval crossed her face. "Agnes said the same about our kind once, that some souls are meant to bridge worlds." The mention of her grandmother tightened Alara's throat. She poured 2 mugs, handing one to Lyra. "Did she ever talk about me? About what I might become if I met someone like Rowan?" Lyra sicked, considering. She spoke of bloodlines converging, said the Thorn women carried a dormant spark, enough to feel the call, maybe even ignite it. Her voice softened. "She hoped you'd found happiness away from all this, but fate rarely listens to hope." Rowan stirred then, sitting up with a low groan. His hair was tousled, eyes bleary but sharpening as awareness returned. He looked from his sister to Alara, a quiet gratitude in his expression. "We should go soon. The grove is safest at twilight. The wards peak then." They ate a sparse breakfast, oats and dried fruit from Graham's pantry, speaking little. Plans had been laid. Reach the sacred clearing, draw the circle, place the moonstone on a flat altar stone that pulsed with inner light. Lyra circled the perimeter, reinforcing wards with blood from a small cut on her palm. Rowan and Alara prepared the center, clearing debris, drawing a wide circle with salt and crushed herbs, placing the moonstone on a flat altar stone that pulsed with inner light. As twilight deepened, painting the sky in violets and indigos, they sat together on a fallen log. Lyra gave them space, perching on a boulder to watch the tree line. Rowan took Alara's hands, his voice low. "There's one more thing I need to tell you, before the ritual." She nodded, bracing. The suspense of his secrets had built to this moment, whatever truth he'd guarded so fiercely. My expulsion wasn't just for challenging father. His eyes were haunted. When the curse backlash hit, I lost control, shifted feral in the village, hurt people, not killed, but close.
The words resonated, amplified by the stone. A tremor ran through him. The shadows were coiling as if burned. The bond flared brighter, threads of light weaving tighter, pulling the curse apart like frayed rope. Rowan's roar echoed through the grove, half human agony, half triumphant howl. Outside the circle, the battle raged. Lyra, in wolf form, tore into the encroaching iron fangs, her gray fur matted with blood. Kale himself had arrived, shifting mid-leap to clash with her, a massive silver wolf with eyes like frozen steel. Claws raked, fangs snapped, the wards crackling under the assault. Two more scouts flanked them, but Lyra held the line, her ferocity a mirror of Rowan's own. Inside, the climax built. Ilara felt the pull in her chest, a cosmic tether snapping into place. Her own dormant bloodline awakened, a faint spark igniting into flame, the Thorn legacy bridging human and shifter worlds. Pain lanced through her, but it was shared, halved by the bond. With a final shattering pulse, the moonstone went dark. The shadows dissolved, leaving Rowan gasping on his knees, sweat-slicked and trembling. His eyes cleared to pure gold, the curse's grip broken. He looked up at Ilara, wonder and relief etching his features. "It's gone," he whispered, voice hoarse. "The pain, it's gone." Tears streamed down her face as she dropped beside him, pulling him into her arms. "We did it, together." Rowan's arms enveloped her, his hold fierce yet tender. The bond hummed between them, alive and unbreakable, a soul-deep connection that transcended words. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling her scent like a lifeline. "You saved me, again." She pulled back slightly, cupping his face. "We saved each other." Her thumb traced his lip, the electric intimacy even amid the exhaustion. "I love you, Rowan. All the parts, the man, the wolf, the secrets you've carried." His breath hitched, eyes shimmering. "I love you too, more than the moon, more than the wild. You're my true mate, Ilara Thorn." Their lips met in a kiss that sealed the vow, slow, deep, pouring out the emotional buildup of storms weathered and battles won. It was a promise of futures, of healing scars together. Rowan's hands roamed her back, pulling her closer, the heat between them building despite the chaos outside. For a moment, the world faded, leaving only them, two souls fused under the full moon's gaze. But reality intruded with a savage growl. The wards shattered under Kale's assault, the alpha bursting into the grove with Lyra clamped in his jaws. She yelped, shifting back to human as she hit the ground, bloodied but defiant. "Rowan!" Lyra gasped, scrambling up. "The stone! Protected!" Kale shifted, rising as a man, tall, scarred, his ice-blue eyes locked on the dimmed moonstone. "It's mine now, rogue. Your little ritual changes nothing." Rowan stood, placing himself between Ilara and the threat. Energy thrummed through him, the curse's absence leaving him stronger, more in control. "It's over, Kale. The curse is broken. Your leverage dies with it." Kale laughed, cold and mocking. "Broken? For you, perhaps, but the stone's power, I'll wield it for the Iron Fangs. And your mate?" His gaze raked Ilara, aditory. "She reeks of old blood, a fitting prize." Rowan snarled, partial shift rippling through him, claws lengthening, eyes glowing. But Ilara stepped forward, the spark in her blood fueling her courage. "Touch him and you'll regret it." The remaining scouts circled, but Lyra flanked her brother, her own shift poised. The grove tensed, a powder keg under moonlight. Kale lunged first, shifting mid-air into his wolf form. Rowan met him head-on, the two alphas colliding in a blur of fur and fury. Ilara grabbed the moonstone, its residual warmth pulsing in her hands. She felt its call, a whisper of power, urging her to channel the bond. Lyra fought off a scout, yelling over the din. "Use it, Ilara! The bond amplifies!" Heart pounding, Ilara focused, drawing on the connection. Light flickered in the stone again, weaker but targeted. She aimed it at Rowan, a beam of silver energy lancing out to envelop him. Strength surged through him. He moved faster, strikes landing with precision. Kale yelped as Rowan's claws raked his flank, drawing blood. The alpha retreated, shifting back with a curse. "This is not the end, Cascade scum. Your secrets will bury you yet." With a final glare, he howled, a retreat signal. The scouts disengaged, melting into the shadows. Silence fell, only broken by heavy breathing and the distant rustle of leaves. Rowan shifted back, staggering to Ilara. She caught him, the stone cooling between them. "It's done," he murmured, kissing her forehead. Lyra limped over, grinning through the pain. "Not quite. The survivors, they'll come now. With the curse lifted, we can rebuild." Rowan looked to Ilara, question in his eyes. A new pact or a quiet life? She smiled, the bond whispering possibilities. "Why not both? Lead with me by your side." His answering kiss was full of promise, deepening the emotional tie that had carried them through fire. But as they gathered themselves, a faint glow lingered in the moonstone, a hint of untapped power, and Rowan's gaze held a shadow. What other secrets did the relic hold? And with Kale's parting words, was the threat truly ended? As they left the grove, united and whole, the moon watched over them, guardian of futures yet unwritten. The moon began its slow descent, bleeding silver light across the grove as the three of them limped away from the shattered wards. Blood, both enemy and ally, stained the moss, but the air carried the sharp, clean scent of victory. Rowan supported Lyra on one side, Ilara on the other, the moonstone now dim and quiet in the pouch at his chest. Its work was done, yet a faint warmth lingered, as if it still listened. They reached the cabin just as the horizon brushed with dawn. The familiar A-frame felt like a sanctuary after the night's violence, its windows glowing softly in the early light. Inside, Rowan eased Lyra on the sofa, fetching water and clean bandages, while Ilara stoked the fire back to life. The routine grounded them, a quiet ritual amid the aftermath. Lyra winced as Rowan cleaned a deep gash along her ribs. "Kale won't forget this," she murmured, voice rough. "He'll regroup, lick his wounds, and come harder." Rowan nodded grimly, tying off the bandage. "But next time, we'll have numbers. The survivors will answer the call now that the curse is broken." Ilara handed Lyra a mug of herbal tea, chamomile and valerian from Graham's stores. Their fingers brushed, and Lyra's gold eyes softened. "You were magnificent tonight. The bond, it's stronger than I felt." Heat crept into her cheeks, but she held the other woman's gaze. "It feels like breathing now, like it's always been there, waiting." Rowan paused in the doorway, watching them with an expression Ilara couldn't quite read. Pride, wonder, and something shadowed. He crossed the room, kneeling beside her to press a kiss to her temple. "Rest," he said softly, "both of you. I'll take watch." But Ilara caught his hand. "Not alone, not anymore." He relented with a tired smile, settling beside her on the rug before the hearth. Lyra drifted into an exhausted sleep on the sofa, her breathing evening out. The cabin fell quiet, save for the pop of burning wood and the distant call of waking birds. Rowan pulled Ilara against his chest, her back to his front, arms wrapped securely around her. She could feel the steady thrum of his heart, stronger now without the curse's erratic pull. His lips brushed her ear. "I keep waiting to wake up, to find this was a dream, the bond, you, the freedom." She turned in his arms, facing him. Firelight danced across his features, highlighting the scars that told his story. "It's real," she said, tracing one along his jaw. "We're real." Their kiss started slow, a gentle exploration born of relief and gratitude, but the emotional dam they'd held back for days finally cracked. Rowan's hands slid under her shirt, palms warm against her skin, mapping her like sacred ground. Ilara arched into him, fingers threading through his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, hungry yet tender, every touch a vow. "I see you, I choose you, I love you." They moved together to the bedroom, Graham's old room, with its quilted bed and window overlooking the forest. Clothes fell away in quiet urgency, barriers dissolving.
Skin to skin, the bond ignited fully, a shared warmth that chased away the night's chill. Rowan worshipped her with reverent hands and whispered words in the old tongue, promises of forever, of pack and home. Ilara met him equally, learning the language of his body, healing old wounds with every caress. When they finally came together, it was slow and profound, eyes locked as souls intertwined deeper than the ritual had forged. Pleasure built like a gathering storm, cresting in waves that left them breathless and clinging. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, Rowan's head on her breast, her fingers stroking his hair. I never thought I'd have this. Peace, a mate who sees past the monster. You're no monster. You're my heart walking outside my body. He lifted his head, gold eyes luminous with unshed tears. And you're my redemption. They dozed in the quiet aftermath, bodies entwined, the bond a living hum between them. But even in repose, Ilara sensed a lingering shadow, the moonstone's faint warmth, Kale's parting threat, and something unspoken in Rowan's gaze when she thought she wasn't looking. Mid-morning light slanted through the curtains when Lyra's knock stirred them. "Riders on the wind," she called